The South African Social Security Agency says as from the 11th of May, cash pay points at which social grant clients normally access their social grant funding will not be serviced. SASSA says that this is as a result of challenges beyond its control. The challenge is extended to post office outlets as well, so clients are advised not to go to any post office branch to try to access their funds. SASSA is currently implementing contingency measures. For more on this, let's bring in SASSA spokesperson Paseka Letsatsi. A very good morning to you, Mr. Letsatsi. What are these challenges that SASSA is facing?
Good morning, Justin. Thanks for having us. I think one of the biggest challenges we're experiencing is that basically lies with the South African Post Office, as it actually experiencing some financial flow problems which they are trying to resolve from the other side. So we thought while they are still trying to resolve their financial administrative flow problems as an organization, we need to make sure that our clients basically get what is due to them. Hence, we came with these contingency measures to make sure that at least people get what is due to them.
Are all grant recipients affected by this, including those receiving the COVID-19 Social Relief of Distress grant?
No, they are. Remember, those who are getting the 350 grant, we're getting it from the post offices, and what we said, some of them were getting it from the post offices, and what we are advising our clients to do is to make sure that they make maximum usage of the infrastructure that is available. In this instance, we are saying because post office is basically experiencing this problem, they can go to USAID, they can go to Checkers, they can go to Pick and Pay, or they can go to Boxer to make sure that they access their 350. But this as well, we are also extending to those who are getting paid at the cash pay point to say, please use maximum usage of the infrastructure which is basically available to your disposal, so that you can then be able to get access to your money. But what we can safely say, Desiree, is that the majority of people, obviously, they are on the national payment system. But secondly, these cards which our beneficiaries have, they do basically transact like a card which is used by me and you. So a client do not necessarily have to panic. They can use it if they want to buy. They can use it if they want to withdraw at those merchants which I already mentioned.
You outlining those alternatives, how efficient are they, and what will be required from the grant recipients to get this, to kickstart the process? Those who are getting who have the cards of SASSA can simply go into those merchants which I mentioned. They just have to go there with their cards, because in any case, a person will withdraw the money at the post office, get into a taxi, go to the bank and spend, go to town to spend the whole money. But those who are using the 350 must make sure that they have the cell phone number with them, because there's an OTP number which they have. And when they get to those merchants, they basically have to produce that particular OTP. We are just appealing to them that that OTP number which you have on your cell phone, just make sure that you have it with you when you go and get this particular amount of money. But your general or your normal social grant recipients, all what they simply do is to make sure that they use their cards. They can then be able to buy whatever that they want to buy. If they need to access the money, they can then be able to access the money using that particular card which they have. So what steps must the grant recipients who register to receive their grants at the post office now take?
Look, it's not a complicated matter. It's just that if you are, for an example, in a simple way, if you were going to an ATM of ABSA and you find that the ATM of ABSA is not operating, you can simply go to Standard Bank or you can go to Nedbank. I think I'm just trying to paint a picture in that instance. I'm not saying it's basically like that when I mention in banks. I'm just saying if people were going to get money from post office, they do not necessarily have to panic. They can simply go and transact at any of these particular merchants. It's very cost effective for them, and they will then be able to get what is due to them. If they basically want to get groceries, they can simply get groceries using that particular card. In actual fact, the good thing about this crisis, Desiree, is that it basically teaches us that old people who were going to pay points of which are run by the South African Post Office, they basically have other options which they can use. We are moving people in any case from queuing, getting money on certain dates. You know that if the pay point is going to open on a certain date, if you are not there the first or second day, the pay point is closed. And this card provides people with various options because they can use whatever infrastructure available to them. But secondly, they do not necessarily have to be confined to certain dates. We also understand, Desiree, that in deep rural areas, there is a challenge of the infrastructure availability and so on. But we think where there is an infrastructure available, people must make maximum usage of it. It's not a complicated process. They can transact and get their money at any time when they want to get it.
We're speaking about this matter today, but just in a recent past, very recently actually, there were massive complaints about new requirements for registering and going onto the system. Are you worried that you're constantly managing crises?
A crisis for us, it teaches us one or two things. It's not basically something that you have to run away from. And I think if I just have to explain so that it's very simple and clear, Desiree, we were using the National State of Disaster Legislative Framework to administer the 350. And when it was lifted, we had to make sure that we use the Social Assistance Act. And Social Assistance Act obviously comes with its own administrative things which you have to do. We have to make sure that we remove people from the national state of disaster into a new legislative framework. And once we do that, you cannot continue as if the law has not changed, or else you'll be in a serious transgression. And if you transgress the law, obviously one would have to face the consequences. And I think we said it was a very simple process just to move people from the old system to the new system. But in terms of how we were disbursing funds, we have a well-oiled machinery which is there to make sure that each and every individual get what is due to them. So that was just, we had to make sure that we comply with the law. Hence, we requested people to make sure that they do re-register. It was a situation of making sure that we do things properly. So I think where we are now, we're able to disperse the grants, but this crisis for us, which came now about the South African Post Office, to us is not a crisis. It's an opportunity which we think beneficiary must make maximum use of it to make sure that whatever infrastructure is available at our disposal, we use it, Desiree. I think me and you know, Desiree, we do not necessarily want to go and get our money on a single day when we are paid, use it, all of it. Secondly, we know that old people in particular, when they withdraw money, once they get out of some of these pay points, if they walk a certain distance, they get marked. In some instances, people steal their money in their own places where they stay. So it helps if you use your card to get exactly what you want at that time. You can go and get other groceries or whatever that you want to get at another time. You are not restricted. In this instance, it's restricted, and we think people must make maximum use of what we are saying, or saying it's a crisis or a problem. We think people must just make maximum use of the opportunity.
Paseka Letsatsi, thank you so much for speaking to us. Do you have any time frames just in terms of when these glitches will be resolved?
We have an engagement with the post office. We're trying to engage other stakeholders to make sure that these problems are resolved as quick as possible. And I think once we reach that stage, there's a committee here that will definitely come back to you and announce to the public in terms of the measures which we'll be putting in place.
Yes, thank you again for your time this morning. Paseka Letsatsi is the spokesperson for SASSA.